5G, what's the big deal anyway? What's the real impact? These are important questions, and that's what we're going to look at today because it's Level Up Thursday, right? Brought to you by Mobile Growth Association. I'm your host, as always, Peggy Ann Saltz, mobile analyst, tech consultant, senior contributor to Forbes, and we come to you on Select Thursdays here on Level Up Thursdays. We bring you lessons, learnings, what you need to be a better mobile marketer, build a better business. And today we're going to look at something that is overarching, right? So if you're an app marketer, you're a brand, you're just like me, you want to know the truth here. We want to understand and go beyond the 5G hype, right? So what does it mean? We know it means speed, but it means more than that. And we're going to get the inside track today from my guest. He's an industry professional with decades of experience in product strategy, software and hardware engineering, partnership management, cloud applications. Above all, I have to say he's real because in the prep, this is going to be a conversation that everyone can understand. My guest, Mayank Bhatnagar, he is principal at Accenture, and Accenture we know as a global consulting firm. So it's just great to have you here, and I'm looking forward to what you're going to share, Mayank.
Thanks, Peggy. Thanks for having me. Yeah, this is a pretty interesting topic even for us, being in 5G world for a few years now, almost a little less than a decade. Would love to share our insights on the network and what it brings.
And also, like I said, get behind a little bit, get beyond the hype just a little bit. And so I said it, I teed you up for it. And hey, look at that. And I didn't know for sure it was that name, Go Beyond the Hype. So we're absolutely on the same page. We've read about it. We know about it. 5G, what can it do? So let's go behind that hype, beyond that hype rather. Share your slides a little bit. Let's walk through it. Have a good conversation, and above all, one that keeps out of the geeky terms, Mayank.
Thanks, Peggy.
Be real.
Yes, and actually it is real. And we would like to, reiterate that we at Accenture are a global consulting management firm. Our role in 5G is multifold. We help clients to deploy network, the tactics, what it takes to do the best hybrid way of getting to market. We design use cases in this industry, and we also help them monetize that. Once you deploy it, how would you use it in the market, and what types of customers come in? So, right then, let's dive into what it actually brings. To your point. Yes. So before we discuss about what 5G brings, I think it'll be good to see the history of where we are and where we came from. Because when we looked at 3G, 4G in the past, we always looked at it as a lens from the consumer angle, right? Our biggest currency in 3G was premium voice and messages. That was a time when we were building networks of better capacity. And then the voice and messages were premium at that point. We used to pay for voice, pay for messaging. And then came 4G a decade ago, and then we were very mature in capacity, but we want to pay for data. So data became the premium currency for 4G that actually helped mobile app ecosystem flourish, right, in the last decade or so. And at this point, voice and text are pretty much a commodity. So every generation of wireless networks, there has to be, we see one currency taking over the other as a commodity. But then 5G is very different. We see multiple potential currencies here. Not just data, not just voice, not just internet, but also type of internet, the tier of internet, device density, because 5G is going to bring us 10 times more devices per mile as compared to 4G. It brings us 5 millisecond latency. I mean, just to put in perspective, it's faster than a blink of an eye. Now, what does it bring on the network? We'll discuss in a few next slides, but getting the network, which is ultra fast, gives us a way to expose brand new capability to consumers and also to businesses. And what will that be? We'll discuss that in a moment.
Well, you talk about what it's enabling, which I can see. So we've had our mobile app time, right? 4G, that was loads of fun. Mobile app economy, we have an ecosystem thanks to that. We're looking to the future. Well, not just the future. I mean, it's also evolving as we speak. But, you bring it up yourself. There are differences, not just in the speeds, but also in really what it can enable us to do and what it can enable different companies to do. So there's really different benefits, I would imagine, for different sectors, different locations. It's a lot of differences. How are you thinking about how it's going to be balanced?
Right. So one thing to understand in 5G which is not the same as 4G and 3G, is that the network is very different. It's no, it's not all networks are created equally. So if company
Mm-hmm.
A deploys a 5G network, it would be rather likely different from a company B that deploys 5G network, and I'll go in detail on how. So
Mm-hmm.
before we get into the use cases and the consumer, we would like to understand what it comes with, right? In wireless, we always talk about spectrum and wireless capability of coverage and capacity in the end, where
Mm-hmm.
you can bring best coverage, best capacity to consumers so they can, consume data while moving at high speeds. So in 5G, we bring a brand new tier of speed, better than your home internet, right? So we have three buckets: high band, mid band, and low band. Today in 5G, we use mostly the low band spectrum, which is normal amount of speed, but the data capacity, but the coverage is enormous. We can go miles
Mm-hmm.
and miles with 4G connectivity. High band spectrum is great for high data, high speed, but the coverage is small, so it can only go a certain distance. So which means we have to bring the towers closer. We have to bring the radios
Mm-hmm.
closer. And mid band basically gives us a balance of both capacity and coverage. And that is the mix of 5G I was talking about, where there'll be different flavors of networks, how you deploy,
Mm-hmm.
where you deploy, location, if you have more trees, folio, the buildings in New York will be different than New Jersey, things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's where the design thinking goes on thinking about 5G and how we bring it to market.
Are there going to be some differences? I mean, I would imagine not just topography, but on the face of it, location. So would it be that this can close, the digital gap that even exists for that matter in the States, if you're in the rural US as opposed to the urban areas and elsewhere? Does it sort of not only allow different spectrum and different bands as you're speaking about, but maybe does it allow one to leapfrog the other? I'm just curious.
That's a great question. Absolutely. 5G brings us that capability to think like that, because when you go to rural areas, you realize that the speeds are not that great. And that's because
Mm,
fiber is not really dug up in those areas because it's so expensive to dig through all the way in remote places. And the last
right.
mile is the hardest place to dig fiber to get the speed up to home. And 5G bringing high bands in low last mile radius just brings us the ability to create networks very quickly in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
Bring that network closer to home as quickly and without digging up anything, without that expensive, construction pieces that we always
Right.
go for. You don't have to do any of that, and build up a tower that can allow the capacity.
So we talk about speed mobility. If anything in this year, we know that everything changes and mobility is different. Mobility has really evolved. We weren't maybe thinking about even just the app economy exploding. If you thought that that was sort of run its course with 4G, it's just accelerated. So, more services, more devices, drones, IoT, that stuff that used to be like talking about the smart home was one thing, but now it's really reality. So I just wonder how 5G is going to impact all of that. It seems like we're going to have all this and more all at one time.
It's getting more real for sure.
Uh-huh.
We always talked about robotics in the last 20 something years, and we have always talked about cloud. But what 5G may bring closer to the edge, as we call it, is edge cloud, which means that if we play, let's say, a game, and how it needs to be faster to be in a game.
Yeah.
People play games on PlayStations and Xboxes because they have consoles, and those consoles are built into the, in the TV. But then what if those games are from the cloud? You need to access that data in a faster manner to play those low latency type games. Robotics, as an example, in healthcare, it's a big industry, and robotics we are seeing taking over quite a quite a bit of few use cases where the robots can interact with systems, and 5G
Hmm.
enabled that in a split second. And it was not available till now, and is getting to be available as we move forward in this space.
And what about the devices? I mean, we've just had a lot of focus on fitness, right? Thanks to what Apple's doing. I mean, I'm hearing so much about quantified self, all of these things, smart home, Internet of Things. It seems to me, and forgive me if I'm missing it, but it seems that we're going to have a lot more. Do we have, as a result of that, a lot more holistic experiences and benefits and businesses, or do we just have, again, sort of spotty bits that we've had as our history is, we sort of have one development and everything catches up with it. But it looks to me as if we might be moving in one speed, one super high speed, right? But we might be moving in one path, one speed. How do you see that? Is it convergence, divergence, confusion? What?
Yeah, hopefully we can reduce all the confusion in this space. And
Okay.
with all these bands you see here, you're absolutely right. Devices will play a big role. And you know, let's talk about convergence and divergence. As to your point, I think what we have seen in devices and what will be important in 5G is the divergence part of it. Because in the last few decades, we saw all our devices, our music players, our computers, our
Mm-hmm.
smaller cell phone that we used to use, in the last decade, they all
Right.
converged into a little small rectangular device called the smartphone. And smartphone revolutionized how we, used these things in just one device, right? And now what we are seeing is we are diverging again. We are creating another set of smart devices. The compute is coming from the phone and getting to your watch. It's getting to your headset. It's getting to your headphone. It's getting to robots and drones, which will deliver stuff to people's home and businesses. So we are looking at this divergent devices that'll allow a better compute, even though the smartphone has all the compute power in your hand. So how do you connect them? So like when I go back to the point that I was making in 5G, you need that capacity and coverage for the network to support this explosion of devices that IoT is going to bring. And we just call it IoE, it's Internet of Everything, instead of
Mm-hmm.
Internet of, because you just see those many devices. People carry at least 2 to 3 devices today in their pockets. And 10 years ago, it used to be just one device. So the divergence would be a pretty big deal for 5G.
What about for the businesses? I mean, we'll get to the business benefit and we'll get to B2C and B2B and all that in a moment. But, we have primarily here an audience of doers, of makers. They're either app developers, they're marketers. They're looking at this and they're saying, maybe this is the time that if they weren't thinking about smart apps and smart TV and all the other places their apps should be or must be, or weren't just thinking in this way, or seeing these opportunities, that maybe that is something that you can tell them to start to really plan for. So it's not like out there. There's a timeline here that's getting closer, and maybe even potentially it's like get in now, like it is with anything that's new. Get in now, get in your space, take your turf, and start in there rather than talking about what will come. And maybe there's also an opportunity because, hey, at the end of the day, it's easier to get machines and sensor networks to buy into what you're selling and doing, maybe than humans. So there's something to be said for owning and dominating sensor networks as opposed to trying to get the audience of smartphone users on board. What do you think about that? What does that tell us? Is it something that is so real now with the hype dissipating that it's time to plan seriously? And what are you telling people as Accenture as well?
I mean, as Accenture, we are saying, we are telling people to start investing in this tech right now because it's coming. We
Mm-hmm.
know the networks are coming. We know devices are coming. We know smartphones are already capable of 5G, as you may have seen in other launches that's been happening last 2, 3 years. But the capacity will be increased every year from now till 2030. So when we talk to developers, we talk to app marketers, we tell them that, look, the advertising is going to be hyper focused on location. It can be coming to your edge. It could be coming to people's headset, not just cell phones. Think about
Mm-hmm.
augmented reality, where your ads can be overlaying in a camera that is already on your phone. What can you do with a camera other than taking pictures and photo and videos? You can actually have augmented ads there, which is much more
Mm-hmm.
engaging. People are already getting used to it, and they're already understanding the benefit of those things, like getting to buy a piece of furniture. What if I can see it in my living room before I even go to the shop to look at it, right? And AR is making it possible. So the way advertisers are thinking that, it used to be on the smartphone and the PC world, they're thinking, how about showing it in an AR capable format so you actually can interact with the product? And so that opens up a lot of business opportunities, a lot of advertising opportunities, which are just more than on your device or on your TV or on your computer. It can be on all these devices that we are showing on screen. Voice is going to be a big, mover in that space because of high compute, and people accepting voice-based conversations more and more with your Alexas and Google Homes.
Hmm.
Voice-based advertising is going to be another thing that we believe will take off even in a bigger way, because when you're driving or you're biking and you're doing things with your pets, and your voice is coming because you're interacting with the gadget, you're necessarily not looking at it, you're just listening to it, right? So there will be new business models that'll come up, and we are helping clients to position themselves now so they can be ready when the network hits prime time, which is next year.
So just curious about that. We're in these times, right, where everything is accelerated, and you're talking about, augmented reality, um, different types of immersive advertising. And before that was sort of like, yeah, that's very interesting. We have use cases for it, but we weren't really so receptive to the idea. And I think now after, a lot of time confined in our homes, I'm reading, I'm talking to marketers out there, particularly in commerce, it's going to be a given that you can look at what you want to buy and try it on in your virtual world and do all of that, because that's what we've had to do, or we've had to move like that. What have you seen? I mean, because you're talking to all of these clients, all of these major companies, are they like, this has been the point. This is rapid innovation, iteration, acceleration, and this is something now that it's going to be table stakes, maybe because, as all things, when it's a mega trend, it's driven by the consumer.
That's right. And unfortunately, we discussed about it a few months ago, but COVID has brought it to our attention that home has become another place where people are able to access healthcare. They're able to access
Hmm.
education. They're able to do things that they never thought they'll do at home. Suddenly there's a trust in the home network. And if you see till now, when we think about a home internet, we always think about a tier of speed. And when we talk about mobile internet, we always thought about data and voice. Um,
Right.
Converging them together, which means your cell phone can also become high compute, high power speed, that opens up those opportunities, right? So what you get at home and when you're moving around, what can you take with you on this mobile device that can help you get exactly what you got at home? It's not possible today because your fiber connection is not the same as your mobile connection. But with 5G, it will be ubiquitous, right? All the devices
Hmm.
will have the same capability as if you're home. So, that brings me to the point that businesses can actually start thinking about those possibilities of, getting to the consumers in a different way, work with people, that are close to home or close to businesses, and start thinking about getting their ads or getting their products more useful, to the consumer market using 5G, because that
Hmm.
will get you hyper location and hyper positioning.
Which is going to be actually super important going forward, because without all of the data and data points that we were counting on for advertising, right? We have to innovate. We have to think. We have to connect the dots in different ways. And the meaning, the importance of location, the meaning and importance of connecting dots in these networks is going to be much greater, because the old ways of engagement and measurement of effectiveness, they're toast. They're not going to be there. How are you telling businesses about the benefit here? Not just that they have to get on board, but reasons why people do things when there's a payoff, right? Mayank, they don't do it just because it's cool. And this certainly isn't time to invest in something because of that. You invest because you're saying, this is going to be sustainable. This is going to be what I need to do to be here tomorrow. Let's go through some of those scenarios, because there are vast business benefits, but also for companies that aren't the major players, the major sizes. I'd like to understand sort of how that breaks across the ecosystem of different types of companies, different verticals, different types of businesses.
Yeah, makes sense. I think it gets me to the next point too, enabling new businesses and new companies who are coming in and participating in the ecosystem. Now, how we tell the marketers and we tell ad companies or new businesses that want to be participating in 5G is basically not just speed and capacity, but we also talk about low latency, things like massive IoT. We call it massive IoT because like I was telling earlier, Internet of Things is becoming Internet of Everything. What can you do as a company to help that space? For instance,
Mm-hmm.
factories are becoming smarter factories, marketing spaces are becoming smart spaces. What I mean by that is devices are being connected to your ads. So today, when you think about a banner ad, or we think about something that a customer sees, we don't think much about the interaction other than the click to that ad. We are thinking about hyper visualization of the ad where customers can interact with it, literally make the deal happen within the ad. So the retailers can play directly in the ad because because of the speed and the connectivity of devices that we can present today. It was something that was not available a few years ago, and we call it, hyper connected marketing.
Mm-hmm.
We also tell businesses to invest in automation. In the past, automation used to be a big deal for a lot of companies because they had to invest in things and gadgets that'll work in a particular scenario. But with
Right.
5G, the automation can go across devices, and that reduces cost of making things and bringing them to market. So those are few ideas that we provide businesses to, not only reduce their OpEx, but also think about future expansion of their products in a good manner.
So what are you seeing are some of the scenarios that are just resonating the most, or maybe closer to our mindset? Some of this is still feels a little out there, but voice feels real because we have Alexa. We're getting into that. Internet of Everything starts to feel real when you're in your home and the home network becomes really the home base. But what is resonating out there? I'm just curious if there's something that of all of these different scenarios or use cases is just going to go a little faster than the others. Education maybe is a really obvious one. Um, you know, so many had, that was the way that we had to, way we were learning, period, no matter what level. So what would you say is sort of what's hot and what's not here, I guess is the question.
I think what's taken off really quickly is things that we use in home, and
Mm-hmm.
also things that we use in smaller small business settings. We call it private networks. So because of a simple reason, if we are connecting these dots, like you said earlier, right? That's super important for a consumer. If we can connect the dots between the devices we use at home and the devices we use outside of home in a very seamless manner, that's a game changer for people to use those devices and services. Healthcare is something that we are paying a lot of attention to because we are working with a lot of clients who are enabling smart conversations and smart assistance-based bots for healthcare companies with 5G. Because how can you connect with devices and doctors and patients and families all in the same manner with all the compliances in place, with all the security in place? 5G brings that, and that is something that is very close to what we are doing, and we believe that's going to take off even sooner than some of the others.
Mm-hmm.
One more example I would talk about would be fixed wireless access. Um, we always talk about fiber and high-speed internet, but unfortunately, 40% of plus country doesn't have that speed that we look for, like 1 gigabits per second or something of that.
Yeah.
We didn't just get it. 5G has ability to provide, like I was mentioning earlier, the last mile capability of high-speed internet. We call it fixed wireless because we really don't have to, dig a fiber all to your home. We can literally provide a router, which a drone can actually mount on top of your house, and there you get high speed. That is something that we're looking really closely on, and that can enable connectivity to people who don't have connectivity, as well as to,
Mm-hmm.
so far. So those are businesses that are working on this stuff as we speak.
Mm-hmm. What about what you're also seeing at Accenture? Because I mean, you do a lot, sort of, to your credit, a lot of amazing thought leadership from Accenture. I remember hearing the first time I heard about sentient and sentiment networks was from Accenture. It was the whole idea that, everything is going to be in your home, connected, the sensor networks. This is going back, over a decade, but it was a great place to sort of get a glimpse of the future. What can you share from what your thinking is over there? Because you have to be just a little step ahead of this, otherwise you can't give the advice that you can. So you see this already. What do you see next?
We do, and what we have invested as Accenture is we have created these 5G innovation centers all across the world, and
Mm-hmm.
Asia and Europe and North America, where we provide the future-looking space and use cases for companies and our clients now. So
Right.
we can bring those use cases to bear in our labs, so we can show the clients what's possible, the art of the possible. We also provide design thinking sessions and innovation hubs where companies can come in and try that thing out before they start investing for the next 5 years. So we have done a lot of things already, including 5G implementation, including the network and these devices that you see on screen. We actually have them working in most of our innovation hubs, and we invite the clients to come in and look at it before making their decision of their next decade of investment.
So you have a glimpse into this. We can't go anywhere now, but you know, we could maybe like imagine a little bit of a cool trip, you know, an outing to one of your innovation centers, and it's almost like, you know, Disneyland or something for futurists, right? Um, what has impressed you? Where have you been and said, you know, because you're privy to this, right? Where you said, hey, wow, is that what we're looking forward to? Because 5G is there next year. The future is going to sound, I don't know, a little bit trite, but it's really not that far away. So what you're doing in your labs, in your hubs, is theoretically not that far out there anymore, as it was maybe a decade ago when I visited something like that. So what impressed you? Where did you come off saying, wow, I didn't know we were doing that? Or maybe you're the proudest of it because you're saying, wow, that's pretty cutting edge.
Yeah, I think one thing that impressed me when I've been working on with my team for the last 5, 6 years is autonomous vehicles. We see all this buzz about Tesla's not being able to get to stage 4, stage 5 autonomy or other companies, and because of various reasons, not just technology, but also regulation and things like that in cities. But what we have been able to achieve is a decent level of autonomy in a very short period of time. And we can see that when 5G comes full blown deployed in, let's say, a city and or a county or a state, we can see this autonomous vehicles being more and more capable of working independently of manned vehicles, right? That was something that blew me away. Like few months ago when we saw our own in our own test bed that car running around, a maze that we created. And because it was all connected and with the speed and the low latency I was talking about, can allow the car to talk to other cars and navigate through the road and through problems or things that come in the way. That was very impressive to me. And that future is not very far, but it requires us to connect the cities and connect the network in such a way that it should be seamless. There should not be any dead spots, and we should be able to
Yeah.
100% connectivity to get there.
Any regions that you're looking at? Because I remember not too long ago in journalism, you know, we all had to look to Singapore and we had to write these articles about, you know, it's all there. That's the future. That's what we have as the benchmark. That's our poster child. What about the regions that are going to have this or have the benefits or just be the most amazing first?
So I think it's gonna be in pieces. You know, we aren't looking at one region or the other, but what we also know is because of densification of more radios and 5G, we have to think about smaller networks and getting them together to build a bigger network. And that's why on the right you see private networks. We believe those will be focus regions. And just a few weeks ago, there was a big auction in FCC, and a lot of companies actually bid for this private network spectrum only because they want to offload a lot of content and data from the real wireless networks to smaller private networks so that we have space in the wireless spectrum to do more of these cutting edge things. So our focus today is to build that ground up, build those private networks all around the country. So when 5G happens, it actually connects to those networks and, you know, and scales better.
Mm-hmm. And that's my last question. When it happens, is the timeline realistic or is it just something that we're saying before we knew everything was changing this year?
Timelines, you know, it depends on who you ask. If you ask us, we believe the timelines are fairly laid out. We are ahead in the game. We thought 5G will happen in 2024, 5 years ago, but we see that happening now. We see
Yeah.
some regions already getting 5G enablement. They are spotty, they're not everywhere, but they're starting to happen. Devices that consumers use, they are already 5G capable. They're looking at places where they can connect and get those speeds down. So we believe timeline is very natural and it's coming, you know, actually before time, before we thought.
Mm-hmm.
So it's now.
It's now. And just curious, I mean, you talked about the innovation that you've been seeing. Anything you want to share in closing about perhaps where we can go for more information or to be, you know, amazed? Maybe you have a certain experiences that we can start to get our head around right now. Also in the advertising, I don't want to downplay that just because the cool stuff is in the self-driving cars and the voice enablement, but you know, overall, to get a real view into the use cases, to get a real view into where this is going sooner than we think, where would we go?
So we have 5G accelerators on our website, and the link is in on the screen here. We call it 5G acceleration, and we have use cases on advertising and a bunch of other verticals. Please feel free to go there. The link is here, and we can share it with the audience. That's where you can find most of the information and accelerators that you would need to get started on this.
Mm-hmm. And how would one engage with you? I mean, say someone is looking at that and says, "Hey, this is really cool. I really get this. I need to get on board." Is there a specific way or a specific type of company that you prefer to engage with, or is it all of the above? I mean, you don't just sort of, ping Accenture and say, "I would really like to be a part of all this." What's some sort of prep or something ideal that has to happen before I can really ping you or get in touch?
No, I think there's no certain type of companies, because that's one thing 5G has done. It has opened up, capability around any type of company participating in that ecosystem. Doesn't have to be a wireless company or a wireline company or a company that provides one service or the other. It can be as simple as a shop that provides service to the customers. What can 5G do for them? Can we bring them better connectivity? Could we bring them device to device cheaper plans that they can give it to their employees? I think it's open, and it's very well vast, in my opinion. I don't want to box any particular types of companies or types of providers. So if you need to know what 5G can help you with and how we could help you, please get in touch and we'll help you get there.
Well, you heard it here. I mean, unfortunately, we don't take audience questions, but I can imagine you're going to get some stuff going on in social and also, through the Mobile Growth Association website as well. Mayank, it's been great to have you, and thank you so much for sharing all of this.
Thanks, Peggy. Thanks for having me.
And I hinted at mobilegrowthassociation.com. That's the website where maybe, hopefully, you'll also write a companion blog or something here to go along with it to continue the conversation there. And of course, I encourage everyone out there to go check it out. That's what it's about. It's about Level Up Thursdays. It's under education, where it should be, because it's all about knowledge sharing. So that's why I encourage everyone out there, spread the word about Level Up Thursdays, bring friends, have some fun. And suggest some topics. Go to social media. If you have a question, we can take them in advance and ask them in advance. So until another Level Up Thursday, I'm your host as always, Peggy Ann Saltz, signing off, and we'll see you soon.